Ender Lilies Quietus of the Night by developer Wire and Adglobe released for PC, Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S back in June, and will release on PlayStation in Q3 of this year. In this video, we're going to take a look at the new Metroidvania Dark Fantasy 2D action RPG and what it has to offer in terms of gameplay, combat, story, customization, and overall features. This is a sponsored post. Please note, sponsored posts are only sponsoring coverage. Our opinions on the game are our own and not affected by any business relationships with developers or publishers. Ender Lilies Quietus of the Night is a Metroidvania-styled action RPG that is presented in a 2D art style that mixes a dark fairy tale-like world with combat that is very addictive. If you have played titles such as Bloodstained Ritual of the Night or Salt and Sanctuary, you'll feel very much at home here. And while things do feel familiar, in Ender Lilies you gain new abilities after defeating challenging bosses, with each foe having their own unique combat style as well as wonderfully hand-drawn design. In true Metroidvania fashion, you'll encounter areas that are at first inaccessible, only later being able to backtrack to them once you've unlocked an ability such as double jump to traverse that area. Ender Lilies also has some of the Souls formula where you wage risk versus reward, and it's about progressing through the mysterious lands as well as upgrading your skills. While you do get to replenish your health and combat abilities when you rest, it respawns enemies, meaning you'll have to decide whether to continue with your low health or to fight your way through enemies again you've already faced. Ender Lilies follows the journey of a young woman called Lily who wakes up in the depths of a church. She must traverse Land's End to unravel the mystery of why the kingdom was destroyed by the Reign of Death. Along the way, she is faced with monstrous undead known as the Blighted. The setting is fairy tale-like, but with much darker overtones, and locations are very ethereal looking, while there are quite a variety of enemies to face, from blighted spores firing mushrooms to underwater creatures. Lily teams up with a cursed knight as well as spirits that lend their abilities to fight alongside her. But these spirits are granted from enemies or friends that have been cursed with blight, making victories bittersweet. It may seem simple at first, since Ender Lilies doesn't have a stamina bar to limit your dodges, it doesn't have traditional parrying or backstepping, and you don't have to worry about fall damage. A lot of the strategy comes from your positioning and choosing the spirits you wish to invest in with spirit residue to enhance them, such as shield parrying ability. This makes for some flexible gameplay, tackling bosses with your preferred playstyle, and coming up with strategies that work best with different movesets. What's interesting about certain spirits is that they have a limit to how many times you can use them, meaning these need to be used sparingly. When they run out, you have to either return to the respite to regenerate them, or hope to smash open a barrel to regain some uses. Respite is similar to games such as Salt and Sanctuary, where you can rest up, also gives you a chance to enhance your spirit abilities, and slot relics, which are permanent buffs while slotted. However, unlike Salt and Sanctuary, Ender Lilies doesn't have a massive skill tree to worry about, which keeps the gameplay a bit more straightforward, but still with solid customization through their features. Even though some enemies aren't particularly fast in their attacks, they can be quickly joined by more foes, making some areas particularly challenging. Bosses have phases triggering new attacks and even speeding up their moves, which can make for some nail-biting moments. The only gripe I would say I had while playing was that Ender Lilies is quite directional when it comes to attacks. For example, trying to hit an enemy while you're in close proximity but facing away from them won't cause them any damage. But as it is a 2D scroller of sorts, no backswing damage can be forgiven, but just watch out of enemy backswings because they do cause damage to Lily. Ender Lilies takes light inspiration from Souls-like games, allowing players to heal a limited number of times, but you'll need to hold down the heal button in order to recover, meaning timing those heals just right or face death. And just as you would expect, enemies hit hard and are unforgiving. But with a number of ways to play, you can mix in ranged attacks with some more close-range ones such as shield for parrying or even a bird that will fire projectiles when you're within distance of an enemy. As with any Metroidvania game, the fun is unlocking new areas once you receive new abilities and figuring out how to proceed. The world is stunning, with a number of ways to explore, whether through fast travel by horse and carriage or traveling up underwater waterfalls while avoiding threatening sea creatures. You'll unlock more actions as you progress, making more ways to traverse the world around you, as well as give you more moves when it comes to combat. These actions also come from defeating bosses, so you'll have to be up for the challenge in order to open up more levels. Atmospheric piano music plays throughout the game, which is slightly sad in places, but does well to enhance the overall experience of this fantasy title, especially in cutscenes. It's the soundtrack that really pulls you into the immersive world, complementing the hand-drawn looking visuals and the bewitching setting that only get better and better as you continue to explore. While Ender Lilies doesn't have any voice acting, this isn't missed as you'll be spellbound by the captivating music that accompanies you as you delve deeper into Land's End. What's interesting about the game's visuals is the contrast between the cute main character and dreamlike setting compared to the ghastly enemies. For an indie title, its visuals have a lot to offer and invites players into an eye-catching world that makes you want to keep exploring. The spirits you collect will appear as you use their abilities in combat or when you take a rest at the respite areas, which is a nice bonus as you can see your collected abilities visually as characters. Locations range from dank dungeons to glowing underwater areas, giving quite the variety of setting. Final thoughts. Ender Lilies Quietus of the Nights is now available on PC via Steam, Nintendo Switch, and on Xbox, with a PlayStation launch later this year. It's one of those titles where you can easily sink hours into just exploring and getting lost in its dark fantasy world, as well as finding it hard to put down your controller as you challenge yourself to yet another boss. While Ender Lilies doesn't offer voice-acted characters, usually a huge negative for me, it's not really missed when the game is accompanied by such a stellar soundtrack and well-put-together visuals. If you're a fan of Metroidvania games such as Salt and Sanctuary, Hollow Knight, or Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, Ender Lilies should fit right into your collection. Ender Lilies only costs $19.99 USD, which is in the range of the games I just mentioned as well, and is about right. It currently has a 94% user review score on Steam, and if you want to go ahead and pick up the game, use the link below to support the channel.